What
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to our Parsha webcast. Those of you who are here, or those of you who are watching this online, thank you for tuning in. I would like to, we are going to be learning today the portion of Toldos. And in this portion, the focus is on Yitschak and his two children. Till now, the focus was on Avram and Sarah, the first Jewish couple. In this portion, the focus is on the second Jewish couple, Yitschak and Rivka. They get married in last week's portion, and in this week's portion, they have their two children. The portion begins with the birth of Yitschak, of Yakov and Esav. And the birth is a difficult one. We're told that Sarah has a difficult time with the pregnancy. She saw that she began to feel a certain strangeness. She felt there was an agitation in her womb, in her belly. We're told that when she would walk through a house of study, she'd feel the fetus kicking to get out. And then when she would walk through a house of idol worship, she'd feel the fetus kicking to get out. And she got very worried. She figured she's got a schizophrenic in her womb. The guy can't make up his mind. He wants to go to yeshiva or to church. What does he want? And she went to seek out help from the prophet. She went to the prophet of the time. His name was Shem. And she asked him for advice. What should we do? And he informed her of the good news that there's no schizophrenic in her womb. There's two children, there's twins. And they'll be in a constant battle. There'll be a battle between Yakov and Esav, the perpetual battle throughout history, which we're still experiencing today. The Jewish people and the rest of the world. Esav is the progenitor of Edom. Edom is I guess you would say would be Rome. Rome is a direct descendant of Edom. So Esav is the father of the Christian world. Of Rome, which is of course the father of the Christian world, came from Rome and spread from there. Yishmael is the father of the Muslim world, the Arab world. Esav is the father of Edom. Edom meaning Rome. And Yishmael is the Arab world. Esav is the Christian world. And Yitzchak, the prophet, Shem tells Rivka that there's going to be a perpetual, constant struggle between Yakov and Esav.
Esav and Jesus related?
Not related, but
they attracted him?
No, he was Jewish. But I'm talking about what turned out to be the Roman Empire is a direct descendant of Esav. And he told him that this was going to be a constant struggle. When one is up, the other will be down. When one is the other is up, the other one will be down. And she has the two children. They're born. And one is Esav and one is Yakov. Esav turns out to be a terror. He's a man of the field, the Torah tells us. He's a murderer, a terrible personage.
And Isaac loved him.
Yeah, we'll get there. Whereas Yakov was a man of the tents, a very simpleton, as the Torah calls him, wholesome. A man that lived in the tents, he was learning, he spent his time in study, in prayer, in meditation. He was a man of God, he was a holy person. And the Torah tells us one of the most famous episodes in the Bible of Esav came home one day very exhausted, and the Rashi tells us that he was exhausted because he just killed some people. He just came home from a criminal activity. And that exhausted him, and he wanted food. He was very hungry. And Yakov at that, just at that time, was making a lentil soup. And the reason he was making a lentil soup is because that was the day that Avram died, and Yitzchak was sitting Shiva. So he gave the first meal he gave to Yitzchak was lentils. It's a round, it's like the eggs that we eat today. The first meal after a funeral, we eat eggs. It's the cycle of life. So he prepared this lentil soup, and Esav comes home, he's exhausted. And he asks him if he can please pour him down his throat some soup. Literally, that's what he asked him, if he can pour him into his mouth soup. So he told him, yes, I could do that, but with a condition, if you sell me your birthright.
Sign here.
And he said, okay, what do I need? His birthright. Esav said the birthright is a responsibility because in temple times the firstborn were designated to be the temple servants, and there's a lot of difficult consequences to that service. If you do something wrong, the slightest thing you do wrong, there's a death penalty. He says, who needs it? It's too burdensome. You can have it, Yakov. And he sold it to him, and he took an oath that it's yours, and he gave him his soup, and he was very happy. Then we read another few incidents that there was a famine in the land, and Yitzchak was forced to move to near the Philistines, and he had their whole battle with them over the water, the wells, and he ends up being successful, and he gains mastery over those wells, and God is with him in everything he does. This Yitzchak becomes very wealthy. He does well. And then the next subject we find in this whole story is that Yitzchak becomes old. And when he's old, he's blind. He became blind. He couldn't see anymore. And Rashi again quotes a midrash telling us why couldn't he see? Because Esav married some women, and they would offer incense all day long in their house. They lived in Yitzchak's, compound, and they offered incense all day to their idols. And the smoke got into him, plus it blinded him. It was so much that he got blind from it.
Why did he allow them to even live in his compound?
What's his son? What's he going to do? They didn't ask him, I guess.
Well, he was like...
They were there. That's who they were. Now, there's a very interesting verse in the beginning of the portion that I forgot to mention, and that is that when the Torah describes the two sons of Yitzchak and Rivka, the two being Esav and Yakov, the Torah tells us that Yitzchak loved Esav and Rivka loved Yakov. A very strange statement. It's perverse. Because what exactly does Yitzchak love in Esav? He's a bad person, not a good man.
And Yitzchak is the pure, and he picked up Rivka, which coming from the tumor, coming from the...
Yeah, but why would he love Esav? What's exactly the excitement of Esav? What does he see in Esav that's likable? And the verse gives us a reason why he likes him. Titzayid b'fiv.
He likes to hunt.
Because he's a hunter.
He's feeding him.
He feeds him. It's just not characteristic of Yitzchak to have this attitude. That's what you like in food. Is it about food? He gives you a good barbecue. What is the meaning of this? And Rivka sees that Yakov is the one that you should love. So we'll get to that. The story's not over yet. Yitzchak becomes blind in his older age, and he knows that he's going to die. See, now he has to bestow the blessing that God gave to Avram and to him. He has to bestow it and pass it on to the next generation. So naturally he calls over Esav, the firstborn, and he tells him, I'm going to give you these blessings. And go out and get some food, and we'll make a little get together, and I'll transfer the blessings over to you. Now, the Torah tells us something amazing that happens here. That Rivka overheard this conversation, where Yitzchak told Esav that I'm going to give you these blessings. So she told Yakov, she called over to Yakov, and said, listen what happened just now. Your father sent Esav to the field to hunt him, a couple of animals to make a good meal. It's going to take him some time. He goes out to the field, and he has to hunt and prepare the meal. It'll take him a couple of hours. Do me a favor. Go right now to my yard. I have over there some sheep, and you're going to slaughter it and prepare for your father quickly a good meal. And you're going to go to your father as Esav, and he's going to think you're Esav, and he's going to bless you. So Yakov said, what do you mean? How can I fool him that I'm Esav? I don't look like him. Okay, so he couldn't see. But what do I do if he feels me? It says in the beginning of the parsha that Esav was a hairy individual. He was full of hair. He was like a baboon. He was like a furry person. His body was full of hair all over. You can tell that it wasn't Yakov. If I come with my regular skin, he's going to know you're lying. And he'll curse me, not bless me, I'm afraid. So what does Esav say? What does Rivka say? The curse will be upon me. If he curses you, if this doesn't work out, the curse will be on you. It won't go on you, don't worry about it. It'll be on me. But what she did was, she went ahead and took Esav's clothing. She put on some kind of sheepskin onto him. She took the clothing of Esav that he really liked, that I guess were very hairy as well, and they had the smell of the field, and she put them onto Yakov, and she covered his hands and everywhere with skin, with the fur, and she kind of had this whole scheme to fool her husband, Yitschak, to give the blessings to Yakov instead of to Esav. It's amazing. And she goes, and of course Yakov is not going to argue with his mother. He went ahead and did it. And he went to Yitschak, and he says, Yitschak, I'm here.
Couldn't they tell him
you have to read the
voices?
You have to read.
Promoting sin.
Listen. Mm-hmm. You have to read the text, to the nuances, to really appreciate what happened over here. The first talks in terms of Yakov coming over to Yitzchak and says, Father, please, I have prepared for you food and take pleasure in it, and so on and so forth. And he said, Yakov spoke like Yakov speaks, which is, God helped and God this, and Baruch Hashem, and Yitz Hashem. So Yitzchak right away says, is this Esav? This doesn't sound like my son Esav. The Esav doesn't invoke the name of God every second word. But quickly he changed his tone and he began to sound like Esav, and he was really not convinced, Yitzchak. He says, are you Esav? He says, I'm Yakov. No, I'm sorry, are you Esav? He says, I am Esav. And he says, come close, I want to feel you. He felt him, and he said, the skin, the hands feel like Esav, but the voice sounds like Yakov. But it was felt like Yakov, felt like Esav. So Yitzchak gave the blessings to what he thought was Esav. He ended up giving it to Yakov. As he's going out of the room, Esav appears now. He's just got his, he got fetched a good kid, and he made a good meal, and now he's coming to give his father the food. He comes in, and he says, Dad, Father, please rise, I got you the food. He said, what do you mean? You were just here. He says, who was just here? And the whole thing became revealed to Yitzchak and to Esav. And Yitzchak says, I'm sorry, my child, I gave the blessings already to your younger brother. And, so Esav begins to cry and weep, and it's a horrible scene. And he tells his father, do you have only one blessing? You can't bestow a blessing on me as well. And he gives him a blessing. But the real blessings, those blessings that he got from Hashem, that were bestowed upon Avram and Yitzchak and to the Jewish people, he was going to give it to Esav, but it ended up in Yaakov's hands. But here, listen what happens over here. Esav now is furious at Yakov. And he tells his father, I'm furious at him. Why? He says, this is the second time you fooled me already. So his father said, what's the second time? What was the first time? I mean, this I know, but what's the first story? He says, many years ago, he's got the birthright out of me. He made me sell him the right to the birthright. The first. So he says, what do you mean? Let me hear the story. So he told him the whole story that he sold him the birthright. He says, oh, now I feel much better. Because I was afraid that I gave away the blessings that belonged to the firstborn, to the younger one. Now you're telling me that he bought the first right from you. Then I'm okay. I did the right thing. I gave the firstborn, who is now he bought it from you. I gave it and I bestowed it upon the right person.
So that's how we got out of it.
So that's how we had the right to it. It wasn't really a scheme. It was the right thing anyway, and so on. And the end of the portion is that Esav decided in his own mind that he's going to murder his brother Yakov. And because of this, Rivka got wind of this, and she advised her son Yakov to run away from the house. And that's when he runs away, and he goes to Choran, to his uncle Lavan's house. And that's next week's portion, where he goes there and lives there for 22 years.
He was trying to kill his father.
No. He was planning to kill Yakov.
His brother. No.
His brother.
I understand, but also there is a story that says, or something like that.
Yeah, and I will kill, once my father dies, I'll kill Yakov.
He had a plan, right? He had a plan. He thought about also. Think about his son, thinking about his father to die.
He was saying, when my father's old, when he dies, I'll kill my brother Yakov. That's what he was saying.
It still doesn't make sense.
So what is the story?
I'm going to look into it, because I heard that he was actually planning for killing his father.
I don't know.
Yeah. It's a very interesting story.
Yeah. Anyway, so what I want to discuss today is to try to make sense of this one very bizarre story.
Mm-hmm.
There's a number of things that are very difficult to understand over here.
Mm-hmm. Promoting the law.
Number one,
why does he love a murderer?
why would he love Esav?
Right.
What is it why would he want to give those blessings to a man like Esav? Even if you think he's the firstborn. But what is Esav? What do you see in this man that wouldn't attract you to him?
Right. Why would you
And why would you squander such spirituality, such power, the blessings that God gave Avram, the destiny of the Jewish people? You're going to give it squandered on a man like Esav? And why is it saying in the beginning of the portion that Yitschak loves Esav? What was and Rivka was the one that loved Yakov. You're all parents over here. You know what it is to have nachas from your children, how much the effort you have to put in. And God help us, we should all have nachas. You have a son that's learning, and is doing well in school, and he gets good grades on his tests, and he's nothing but pleasure. And then you have a kid that's on drugs, and that's in jail, or he should be in jail. And God forbid, a murderer. Do you imagine?
You don't have to love that person.
Even if you do, but you certainly want to. You're going to love the one that's a good boy.
Doesn't matter. It says a lot of psychiatrists say just because that's your son, if the person is that evil, you don't have to love them.
All right, let's not go there now.
Right.
Even if you're going to love him, parents love their children no matter what. I think.
There's blood.
But let's not get into the psychology of this now. Right. One thing is for sure, that if you love your son that's a troublemaker, you're certainly going to love the one that's a good one. That's all psychologists agree.
For sure.
So what happened over here? Why does he have a greater love for Esav over Yakov? That Rivka loves Yakov, I understand. That makes sense. If his kid's giving him nachas, I love him. I'm going to express my love to him. But why would Yitzchak love Esav? And what lies behind this whole battle? What's the deeper mystery behind this battle of Yaakov and Esav?
Well, he said hunter, right?
He was a hunter.
Hunter is courageous, maybe like the courage in him.
Yitzchak is, that's what Yitzchak is like, the courage in him.
Yitzchak was
a holy man, a man that sacrifice of God. a man that God didn't let him leave Israel because he was so holy. He couldn't tolerate the atmosphere of outside of the Holy Land. Couldn't leave. God told him, you have to stay in Israel. It's in this week's portion, by the way. God told him he wants to leave Israel because there was a great famine. So God told him, you can't leave Israel. You're You're too holy for that. You can't tolerate the atmosphere, the ear of the diaspora. You can't. It's not for you. You won't survive it. So a holy man like that laid on the altar for God, has absolutely no interest in food and petty things like this. He's a man of the field. Like, who cares if he's a man of the field? Why is that exciting to Yitzchak? We're not on Yitzchak's level. If your son became a hunter, would you be excited? Is that something to be proud of? The Torah makes that's his mark of honor. That's why he loved it. That is why he loved it. Because he's a hunter. Because he brings him food. That's what it says here. It's just mind-boggling if you think about it.
What is the quote again? Kitzayad ma?
Kitzayid befiv.
The pig in his mouth.
Yes. Yeah, I'll show you what it says.
Somebody has to bring him food.
What?
Somebody has to bring him food.
No, but
That's okay.
There's a lot of people working for
A
that.
person needs to eat. I agree that a person needs to eat. But is that's the reason that Yitzchak takes a love to Esav over Yakov because he's the one that brings him game? No, you're saying no, but I'm reading to you that verse in the Torah. Here it is. Isaac loved Esav for trapping was in his mouth.
Doesn't make sense.
But Rivka loved Yaakov. When you read the story over here, it begs, it's so obvious that there's more to the story than that meets the eye. So let me explain to you how the Hasidic masters have explained this story based on Kabbalistic knowledge and teachers.
Of course. This is where it gets interesting.
It says, in order to appreciate the story, you need to first understand one important truth. When the Torah talks about Avraham and Sarah and Yitzchak and Rivka and Yaakov and Leah and Rachel, these are the matriarchs and patriarchs of the Jewish people. Everything that they do is a lesson, not only a lesson, but they're charting out, in these portions, they're charting out the story of the Jewish people. So when these people, these holy men and women, give birth to two people, like Yaakov and Esav, they're bringing into the world two forces, and the prophet tells it to Rivka, these are two forces in your belly. And these two forces are brought into the world through Yaakov and Rivka, through Yitzchak and Rivka. What are these two forces? Yaakov and Esav, what do they represent? So the Kabbalah tells us like this. It says that Esav comes from the world of Tohu. In the spiritual realm, there are two realities, two worlds called the world of Tohu and the world of chaos. The world of Tohu, which is the world of chaos, and the world of Tikkun, which is the world of order. Tohu and Tikkun. Yeah. What are these two realms? Tohu is a world where, in the terminology of their sages, the Kabbalistic sages, they said that in the world of Tohu there was an abundance of light, spiritual, godly light, but the vessels containing this light were too small to contain that light. Too much light, too little ability to contain that light. What happened as a result? It's like you take a thin glass, very thin glass, and you take a hot pot of chinik water, a kettle, and you pour boiling hot water in this thin glass. What may happen? It breaks.
Right.
It can't contain it. So it says that the light, the godliness that shined in the world of Torah, which is a higher world, the vessels in that world broke. Spiritual vessels that contain the light, that bring order to that world, that put things in place. Chesed, Gevurah, Tiferes. All the spiritual worlds are made up of 10 spheres, which I believe all of you are somewhat familiar with that concept. In the world of Tayu, Chesed was pure Chesed and did not give any room for Gevurah. There was no mingling and interchanging, which would be the sign of an orderly world, where Chesed mingles with Gevurah. For example, in the world of Tikkun, which is the world of order, where there's less light but greater vessels, so the vessels can contain the light. What does this mean? Let me, in simple English, and language that we can understand. It says as follows. What is it? Let's go back to the Sfirot, to the attributes. They are what? Chesed is one, kindness, Gevurah. We'll take those two as the paradigm. It's Chesed and Gevurah. Chesed is attraction, love, kindness. Gevurah is the opposite. Rejection, justice, strictness, and so on. Is it good to be kind, or is it good to be strict?
You need both.
You need both. You need a balance of both. To give you an example, a father that disciplines their child, is that kindness or is that strict? No, but what's the...
It's strict.
Strict or is it kind?
It's kind.
It's kind. It says like this. I'll take this a step further. It says that in the world of order, not in the world of chaos, but in the world of order, that lower world, where there's less light but more vessels, it says that in that world, all the 10 spheres intermingled with each other. So now Chesed has Gevurah in Chesed, Tiferes in Chesed, Netzach in Chesed, Heid, all the 10 within Chesed, all the 10 within Gevurah. They all intermingle.
Within Torah.
No, that's in Tikkun, in the world of order. So for example, when a father disciplines a child, when a mother disciplines her child, it's Chesed. It comes from love. But love, there's Gevurah within Chesed. Gevurah, kindness, love has an element of discipline as well. How about the opposite? Yasser Arafat smiles at Yitzchak Rabin. Is that kindness or is that Gevurah? That sounds like kindness. It's kind, he's being nice. He's giving him coffee, he's giving him tea. But the whole purpose is to destroy it. Right. It's Chesed within Gevurah. Over there it's Gevurah, but there's this element of Chesed in Gevurah. Gotcha. And in the world of Tikkun, the world of order, everything is intermingled. That's a sign of order. Balance. It's not chaotic. In the world of chaos, in the world of Tayu, it was only Chesed, there was no intermingling. So if you loved someone, you didn't know how to discipline, there's no discipline whatsoever. Kindness, pure kindness, everyone gets kindness. Whether you deserve, whether you don't deserve. Makes no sense, there's no balance. It's so the unadulterated kindness, it platzes. It ends up platzing.
Why would you
it ends up what?
Why would you be there?
One second. It ends up the vessels break. The world can't contain that. So what happened was there was so much godly light, but too little vessels who couldn't deal with it. So what happened with all these vessels? The shattered vessels ended up falling all the way down into our world. And they ended up in this whole physical world. And this physical world is a result of the shattered vessels of the world of chaos. Hold on. Don't get excited yet.
That's not enough.
Now it says like this. It says like this. Esav, his neshama, his soul came from the world of Tayyib, the world of chaos. Yaakov's soul came from the world of order. Tikkun. Now, Tayyib is infinitely higher than Tikkun. The world of chaos is infinitely higher, more spiritual energy than the world of Tikkun. The problem is that spiritual energy is all over the place. As it's not contained, you can't channel it, you can't, it ends up in a disaster. What's the final what is the lowest manifestation of the world of Tayyib? Esav. A tzedreiter, a wilder, a wild animal, a maniac that runs around killing, he doesn't know what to do with his energy. It's all over the place. Yakov comes from the world of Tikkun, from the world of order. He's a normal person. Everything's balanced by him. It's orderly, it's normal. Morning is morning, night is night, good is good, bad is bad. There's a certain order in this world. Now, Yitschak is looking at these two children. Yitzchak's mind is in heaven. He sees heaven. He doesn't see earth. He's more in heaven than he's on earth. He's a holy man. So when he looks at Esav, he sees his neshama. He doesn't see his murderous activity. He sees it. But he sees his neshama primarily. He looks at Esav, he looks at Yakov, he sees Esav's got Tayyib. He has the man comes from the world of Tayyib. He's got unbelievable godly energy in him. It's just all over the place. It's not channeled properly. So Yitzchak likes Esav. What does it mean he loves Esav? He loves the potential. He says, if I can just get this child to be channeled normally, you know what he can do? Do you know what he can do? He can turn the world over and make it. He can bring Mashiach today. He can bring Mashiach today with that godly energy. If I just get him on to be normal. If I just get it channeled normally. So he works on it. He spends a lifetime working on Esav to try to channel that energy into positive energy.
The challenge.
But that's why he loved him. It's not that he loved the food. What does it mean when it says that kitzayid mifiv? Because he has, because trapping was in his mouth.
How did tzayid become told?
I'll tell you why. Because what I just say, all the shattered vessels ended up in the lowest realm in our world. And that's where Esav's engagement was. He was all over. He was in the field, doing hunting and killing and doing all kinds of materialistic things. Yitzchak saw that. He said, wait a minute, if I can just get him. I'll tell you something very interesting also, before I get to this. It says that a human being has to eat bread to live. Did you ever think about it, how it makes no sense, such a phenomenon? Who's higher, bread or humans? Who's on a higher level, bread or a human being? A human being is a much higher level. He needs bread for his sustenance. It doesn't make sense. A higher level creation should need a lower level creation for its survival. It should be the other way around. Bread should need man. What's so funny?
It's
the truth.
It's hilarious.
It is, but that's in the order of God's creation. That's how it should be. The higher sustains the lower, not the lower the higher. What does this mean? And the verse says, Moshe says in Deuteronomy, Ki lo ya'al lechem levadei, not only on bread does man live, ki al kol meitzah pi Hashem, rather on the godly life that's in the bread does man live. So the question is, you're telling me that's not the physical dough that you're living from. You're living from the godly spark that's in that dough. Oh, now it makes sense. But it doesn't, because the human also has a godly spark. Let him live off his own godly spark. What does he need the godly spark of the bread? Huh? You don't have a godly spark. Only bread has godly sparks in it. Everything has a godly spark. And the godly spark in our life is probably on a higher level than the godly spark of the bread. So why should we... the question is the same question. It's just more spiritual. You dressed it up spiritually. But it's essentially the same question. Why does a human being who has a godly life force, need a lower level godly life force? And here's the answer Kabbalah and Chassidus give. The godly life force of the bread is on a higher level than the godly life force of the human being. Why?
Higher level?
It has a higher aspect of it because it comes from the world of Teiyu. The physical world is the lowest manifestation. All these broken vessels ended up in this physical world. So when a Yid takes a piece of bread and he bakes it in a kosher way, and he makes a bracha on it and uses it for Hashem's, he has extracted, redeemed the spark that was shattered and ended up in the lowest realm, and now he brought it back up. Now what happens? You bring it back up, you elevate that spark, you redeem it, so to say. So you redeem it back up to the world of Teiyu, right? Because that's where it comes from. Now we go for the ride. In other words, we are redeeming the sparks of Teiyu, so we also,
Riding it up.
we're riding with it up, so we get a bonus over here. That's why you need bread. Because when you eat bread and all the lower aspects come from a higher. That's why it fell lower. The higher you are, and when you fall all the way down. That's the rule in life. When you fall, the higher you came from, the lower you're going to fall. The stronger the fall is going to be. Drop a penny from the Empire State Building.
It's a pretty big hole.
They drop a penny from here to the floor. It's not the end of the world. The higher the thing is, when it falls lower. I tell you, the sparks of Teiyu fell very low. If we can get that and elevate it through our service to Hashem and bring it back up, you got you won a lottery. That's what Yitzchak's saying of it. Yitzchak loves Esav because he's involved in the physical, where it's Eilam HaTeiyu, it's the world of Teiyu. If he can just redeem it, you can put an end to this right now. Mashiach is in, that's it.
Sounds like you love us so much here.
Listen to this. That's what he loved. He loved the source of it all. And he said, let me work on him to try to channel him in the right direction. And then we can get unbelievable spiritual energy for the Jewish people. And that's why he wants to bless him also. He believed and hoped that with his blessing, if I just bestow the blessing on him, that'll turn him around. And then we have Teiyu in the right direction. Much better than Tikkun. But Rivka, as always in the Bible, the women have a better perception of things. It's not a joke. It's the truth. Rosh Sarah saw deeper than Avraham, and Rivka saw deeper than Yitzchak. She told Yitzchak, Yakov, you got to get these blessings channeled right out of Esav's domain into your domain, because she saw that the world of Teiyu is not ready yet to be redeemed. This is not happening today. This is for later on. It will happen one day, but it's not ready to happen yet. And if Yitzchak ends up blessing Esav, it'll be a disaster. It'll be a waste. This answers another question. This whole story with the birthright. If the Jewish people have to become the birthright, why does God make Esav come out of the womb first, and then only Yakov has to schlep onto his heel, and that whole thing, and then get it out of him in a sneaky way? Make him be born first.
Right.
No?
True.
God could have just made that Yakov should come out first.
It would have been easier.
The answer is
This class wouldn't exist.
that Esav is the first because he's on a higher level. It's just that then Yaakov has to go. Esav is not ready to, that potential cannot be channeled properly yet. So Yaakov has to get it from the back door. So Yitzchak is hoping that because he has such a spiritual intuition, he sees things the way they're on a heavenly level. He sees Esav's potential. He sees Esav's soul comes from the world of Teiyu. So unbelievable spiritual energy there. If I can just get it channeled properly, it's a win-win situation. So he invested in Esav. It's not that he didn't love Yaakov. He loved the potential of Esav, hoping that he can do something with it. And that's why he wanted to bless him.
He thought by blessing him he would...
That alone would do the job. The blessings of Yitzchak are no joke. And it probably would. It probably wouldn't. It wouldn't have. That's why it didn't happen. But he was right for thinking that. His blessings carried the blessings for the world. But it was not the time yet. And you'll see in Parshas Vayishlach, there's a statement from Yakov to Esav. When they finally meet after 22 years, they came back again, they made peace, right?
Mm-hmm.
Remember that story?
Yes, yes.
So Esav tells him, let's go back home now. Let's go together.
And
Yakov says, no, you go first. You go and I'll come back. Well, I'll come. I'll be there one day. I'll get my kids are all young and take some time. And if I schlep them with you, they will drop dead on the way. It will be too much. They'll all die. They'll all collapse. What is he saying to him?
It's not time.
Esav is the world of Torah. Esav's looking, that potential. Let's go home quick, right? Let's put an end to it. Let's get Mashiach going right away. Yakov says the world of Tikkun is not ready for that yet. My kids they can't go on your pace. In the world of Tikkun, can take a few thousand years still. I will get there. He told him, we'll get there. You go first. He went, and Yakov, we're still going. We're still on the way. In the world of Tikkun, things take time. It's brick by brick. We don't have the energy of Esav, but the energy of Esav cannot be potentialized right now. So Yaakov tells him, we can't do it. I know what I'm dealing with. I'm dealing with the Jewish people who are young and tender, meaning they're spiritually, but not developed yet 100% as you would hope that we were. And this is, the journey to the days of Mashiach is a longer journey than you think it is. That's what that means over there.
Is it dependent on Esav's?
We will one day meet up with Esav. What does it mean?
So
he told him, I will, when
so
Mashiach comes. Why are we going to... Because then we'll enjoy the fruits of our labor and have the energy of Torah.
So is it safe to
but
say
it'll
it's
be
dependent on the
lights
person?
and vessels. It'll be all contained properly.
No.
Why?
So that's the story of it. This is not a story of sibling rivalry again, and then a father that doesn't see what's going on around him. He's blind, and he sees everything. He knows exactly what he's doing. But the point there is that Rivka had a better sense of the time and the spiritual energy, what could be done at the moment, and she saved the Jewish people. She saved those blessings, and she got to Yakov to get them, and the rest is history. That understood? Mm-hmm. Thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of your week. We will see you again next Monday night, God willing.